I've been the IT second-in-command at a small trading company for about 7 months now. My boss and I carpool on a long drive, and during these rides, my boss has vented about his CFO, Chuck. He says Chuck knows how to stick the knife in and twist it. No clue what that meant, went right over my head. Well, it certainly hit me today. 3:30 p.m. rolls around, which is end of day for me. I am logged into the firewall trying to get some Purdue's home IP through, and I get a message, word for word. Can either of you have a look at my old Outlook, please? Sure, just finishing up a call, 10 to 15 minutes? Sure. 17 minutes later, hi Chuck, what's the issue with Outlook? It's not uploading. It is stuck. I have closed and restarted the machine a few times, no luck. I log in, see both versions of Outlook are open. One does not have recent emails. General network connection seems fine. I know he has a big mailbox, so reducing the size of the OST is imperative to performance and stability. In fact, the OST could corrupt easily if it's approaching 50 gigabytes. In that case, I'll rebuild the profile. If that doesn't work, I'll clear the cache, repair the app, etc. I'm going to reduce the cached mailbox to 6 months. Why? It works in my laptop. It reduces the OST size to improve performance. That is not the solution. I need at least 1 year of emails available. You can still access old emails, they just won't be in the OST file. If you don't have any, let me know when you work it out so I can go back to what I was doing. Doesn't work. Like I said, that can't be your first solution. If laptop is working, desktop is not. How come one works and the other doesn't? Maybe because they're different devices. It's a solution that's worked well for many others. I don't know how your laptop is set up right now. Laptop has 1 year, then 1 day email would be better, huh? Yeah, that's the new Outlook. Have you got a solution other than that? I will look. 10 minutes later, after checking my sanity on tech forums, looks like a corrupted or too large OST file can cause Outlook, old, to stop updating. Perhaps this hasn't become a problem on the new laptop yet, but will eventually with a cache size of 1 year on a large mailbox like yours. I could delete and rebuild the Outlook profile for you. Are you making a generalization or looking at my system and saying this? I'm referring to this system. Yeah, but is it the basis for the diagnosis, or are you making a judgment this is the case? My best judgment and experience says this is the case. This goes on for a while. Eventually, I tell him I have made this change for 12 people at this company because of large distribution lists. My boss chimes in and explains OST files and cached mailboxes. He agrees with my approach. I reiterate it's not going to change how he uses his mailbox. He can still search his old emails. Eventually, he says, "Neither of you are helping. Got it to work a different way." I asked what worked. He said, "No point discussing it because you guys didn't even look at it. Thanks." 4:30 p.m. I just messaged my boss, what an a-hole, and logged off for the day. 2. In November 2019, me and a couple of my friends, Haley, Rose, and Rachel, were given an opportunity to travel the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Notice that we are archaeology graduates. While our family and friends were excited and proud of us being able to go on this trip, Rachel's family did not feel the same way. Rachel's younger sister, Lisa, was the golden child of her family. Anything she wanted, her parents gave to her. While Rachel had to take out a student loan to pay for college, Lisa's parents paid for her tuition, only for Lisa to drop out 2 years in. Instead, Lisa chose to try to build a career being a model and an influencer on Instagram. When Rachel mentioned that she was going to Egypt with us, that our plane tickets and accommodation have been already taken care of for archaeological fieldwork, Lisa got jealous as she felt that a trip taking photos of herself in Egypt for Instagram would help launch her modeling career. That said, their parents demanded that Rachel give her tickets to Lisa, as they felt Lisa was more deserving of it, to which Rachel obviously said no. It was already paid for by the foundation specifically for her and our group, who were trained to do this kind of work, etc. According to Rachel, she had back-and-forth arguments with her family leading up to the trip, that she eventually just left home and moved into her boyfriend's, now husband's, apartment. I held on to our plane tickets, as we were all to meet up at my dad's place in the morning before we head off to the airport. At the time, I still lived with my dad. That said, as me, Rachel, Haley, and Rose were at my place just hanging out and getting ready, the car of Lisa and their mom pulled up as they came knocking on my door. Apparently, they were demanding one more time that Rachel give her ticket to Lisa. Lisa even had a couple of bags with her as well. Before I continue, just to give you a better understanding of Lisa and Rachel's family, and why they may behave or think this way, Rachel is the only one in her family who has actually finished college. Rachel pretty much took care of herself for much of her childhood, as her parents were too fixated on Lisa. Their parents moved to Los Angeles from Florida to try to become actors but failed, moved up here for some reason, and their dad now works as a truck driver, and their mom, I think, works at a grocery store. I'm sure she's just researching a role. Rachel's family treated formal education and academia in general as a joke, and didn't really support the idea of anyone going to college until Lisa decided she wanted to try going to college herself, as previously mentioned. Haley then interjected, interrupting them and pointing out again that this was not a vacation. This was an archaeological trip, and we were going there to do actual work. Haley went on to point out that it's Rachel's name on the plane ticket and on our accommodation in Luxor. So she asked Lisa and her mom questions like, how do you think Lisa is going to get on the plane? Who will Lisa be traveling with in Egypt, and where will Lisa be staying there? Apparently Lisa, despite not being friends with us at all, and her mom expected the rest of us, me, Haley, and Rose, to just somehow convince customs to let her through and get on the flight, as well as expecting us to look after and accompany Lisa. I should also note that apart from Rachel, nobody in her family ever traveled on a plane before. Lisa and their mom had never been overseas, and the only international traveling their dad ever did was driving trucks to and from Mexico. That said, I'm guessing this is why they don't seem to know how plane tickets or customs work, but that's just my assumption. I then pointed out to Lisa that if she really wants to go to Egypt, she could just buy her own tickets to Egypt and book her own accommodation. However, Lisa said she didn't want to do any of that and she wanted Rachel's place in our trip. She wanted all the expenses to be paid for and for us to accompany her, as she didn't want to travel by herself. Oh girl, you should get used to being alone. Lisa and her mom eventually left, after seeing that trying to argue and force her way into our trip was not getting them anywhere, with the four of us, me, Haley, Rachel, and Rose, flying off to Egypt. After the dig at the Valley of Kings, we did get to go and do touristy stuff, such as touring Cairo and seeing the pyramids of Giza. As for Lisa, while she still posts a lot on Instagram, she seems to have given up on a modeling and or influencer career, and she's now just working in a warehouse. After the pandemic, she did get to go on vacation to Cancun, though that's about it. 3. I am a 29-year-old woman in a steady relationship with the man I love. My parents are very loving and support me. I have an older brother whom I sometimes fight with. Just to let everybody know, I am autistic, have a learning disability along with a developmental disability. I have ADHD and OCD. I'm also very sensitive, and I'm easy to anger. But enough about me. Now let you tell me about the family members we don't associate with. When I was a child and teenager, I had an evil cousin who now reminds me of a 40-year-old Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents. In real life, when she used to babysit me, she took joy in hurting me, saying that people like me with special needs shouldn't exist. Her mother, my dad's sister, and my aunt had a hatred for my mother. She often picked on and belittled my mom. Dad told me that before I was born, a female cat that my parents owned in the future was abused by my cousin and her little demon brother when they were kids. I heard from Mom when they were getting married, my little cousin's demon brother was running around, poking Mom's nieces with a bloody key. The last straw that my parents had for my cousin babysitting me was when she came to pick me up. My parents told her strictly to not take me on the long hike at Kensington Metro Park because I was wearing sandals. She went against my parents' orders and took me on the long hike. During the hike, I got these long, cut-open bleeding blisters. They burned so badly when I told my cousin about it, she said, "Don't be such a baby." When I told my parents what happened, they immediately fired her. Then later on, my cousin's little brother and his wife were getting married. They had this list of people not to invite. I was on the list along with my brother and 2 other cousins whom I had a bond with. The reason why they didn't invite us is because they said that special needs children wreck weddings. Mind you, I was already an adult and my brother was in his 30s, and my other 2 good cousins were in their teens. My parents were angry and didn't go for our sake. When I was 15, while celebrating Christmas at my parents' house, I saw a package with my name on it, and it was from my cousin's little brother and fiancée, and it had a photo book of them looking at each other on every page, and 1 photo of their wedding rings. They were basically trying to show off how entitled and better they were. My father and my brother came up with ways to remake the book. One was to put the Titanic sinking in the background on the page of looking at each other, and another was to Photoshop my cousin's little brother's face, making it look like it was driving an army tank towards his fiancée. We ended up recycling the book. One thing to say about my evil cousin is that she didn't attract guys, while I have a lot of boys and men into me. She is not what one would consider traditionally attractive. However, we're not going to shame her for appearance, but her personality is heavily reflective of her outer appearance. At my grandfather's memorial, my cousin's little brother's wife told their son to smack me, and he did, and my evil cousin's mother snapped at my mom, saying, "Oh, I'm glad you're here." Since Grandma died, we cut off those family members, and during my dad's oldest brother's memorial, Mom and Dad, my brother and I didn't go. The reason why I didn't go is because I was hanging out with my cousin on Mom's side of the family at YumaCon, an anime convention in Detroit. Dad told me to go to YumaCon, and I was so happy. He told me we could go and pray for my dad's brother by ourselves. Anyway, thank you for listening to my story. 4. For backstory, I manage a small Italian-style scratch bakery. A customer ordered a cake, wanted one same day, which we very rarely do. But we were ahead on production that day, so sure. Took the order for a 12-inch cream cake. Customer said she was driving about 4 hours. We said, "Oh, you'll need refrigeration of some kind. And it's a cake with custard in the center and fresh whipped cream icing, a la traditional northern Italian cake." She says no problem, she'll bring an ice chest. Picks up the cake, end of day. Is shocked how big a 12-inch cake is when I opened the parchment to let her see. Cake box was tinted like 45 degrees and taped with parchment because it was like 2 inches taller than the box. Says it should be all okay. Well, customer calls back today and complains a full 5 minutes with an employee who is trying to hand me the phone, but the woman kept talking and I was just like, "Please get her number, I'll call her back ASAP," as I was juggling a few tasks at that moment. Employee explains the woman was angry and upset her cake slid apart, but also wanted to complain it was burned, dry, like cornbread, not properly secured. Plus, we embarrassed her and ruined her mom's birthday. Impressive. I called the woman back, who told me everything she told the employee. I told her in this situation, company policy is we can give a 25% refund. She, of course, was livid. Said she was going to make sure we get several bad reviews. Owner says to me, "Tell her 65%, which I did. And she told me she didn't like how I was handling this situation. She wants a full refund, and we were being unethical. I told her she would have to email the owners to escalate the situation since I'm not able to give a full refund without proper review. She agreed. She sent pictures. It literally looked like how our cakes normally come. The margarita cake, it's a bit drier and has no butter or oil, lots of custard, fresh whipped cream. The burned part was dark brown, sure, but that's literally how the cakes always come out on the edges. Owner has made these so many times. She also said the cake wasn't secure. That part is possible? It was so tall we had to tent the box some, and the board isn't 100% flush inside. Honestly though, we've only had one other incident of someone having a cake slip and crack, and it was the same, too long without proper refrigeration. But I'm still wondering, is it actually unethical not to refund a customer the first time they complain they weren't satisfied with a product? Do we just need to change policy? Have a waiver? Hellfreezer's note, I think if she hadn't been such a poopy head about it, I wouldn't have personally given her my money, but had I owned the bakery, I'd have just given her a full refund. A one-time refund, making sure she understands. That's an exception, just for the sake of being nice. But given how she went off on not only you, but the person who answered the phone, and presumably will go off on your bosses as well, I feel like she's not being entirely honest in that she didn't listen to the instructions she was given. You gave her quite clear instructions about how the cake should be handled, and therefore it didn't turn out the way she expected it to. User error, that's probably what happened there, so in that case, I wouldn't give her any refund because she's going to write a bad review regardless. 5. I'm going to name our bad housemate Ian, not his real name to make this story clear. Basically, Ian has relatives next door but doesn't live with them because of the lack of room availability, and he apparently wants privacy. There are 4 of us living in a 2-floor apartment, and Ian is the one who would always use the electric appliances more. It wouldn't be a problem since that's your right to use anything in the house, and we all have to use it daily. But the problem is Ian's relatives would come inside and use the AC every day, every single day without fail. They would come and lounge on our couch and even use the ceiling fan with it. Apparently, when the rest of us are out for about 15 hours at least, 5 or 6 times a week, because jobs, they, Ian and his relatives, would use the electric stove because these folks like to do slow cooking in our apartment, which means they would use the electric stove for more than an hour minimum. At first it was okay, we didn't mind, because we were not aware of how frequently they would visit and use the AC and the electric stove whenever they pleased. Not until the electric bill came. Now we don't know why, but this idiot would ask the landlord to double-check the electric bill, saying it was wrong. Well, he was right, because they missed the calculation, and now it went from $500 to $800 because the idiot thought it was less. And he was scrambling to explain why we got a new bill notification. I almost told him it's because you couldn't shut the hell up and mind your own business. We were wondering how the hell it was even that high when none of us, our 3 other housemates, used the AC for a long time, because we like to go out of the house and often hang out or stay at our partners' places, or are busy with jobs, than stay in the house. The only time we are in the house is when we sleep, and had 1 or 2 days off, which we're never in the house as we got places to be and people to meet. Only Ian stays in the house. Then we find out from a friend who was frequently invited to the house that Ian and his folks would use the AC every time the rest of us were away, and would have meals and cooking sessions instead of next door, where they live. What annoys me most is how he never acknowledged him and his folks caused this. I would have been okay if he was sincerely apologetic, but all he did was save his butt by laughing it off and saying, "The important thing is comfort, and it's alright to have that." Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 193. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by joining me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. That's monthly support for as little as $1 a month. You can also buy some merchandise, which is also linked in the description for you. And you can leave a tip for this or any other video by clicking on the heart with the $sign underneath. Okay, I don't think we have any other bits of business today, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. What is the oddest thing you have done lately? For me, I just was in the living room before I came up to record, watching a German television show, and I don't speak German. It did not have subtitles. It was, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but there's a British television show called Ghosts, which is getting many different adaptations throughout the world. There's been a US version so far, which is quite good, on CBS, with Rose McIver, I want to say, and also other people. And they're doing a French version, I believe. I think they're doing an Australian version, and have filmed a German version. And that's so far. I assume there will be others. And the German version, I found a legitimate, as in a legal, properly sourced link to go watch it on the website for it. And as I say, I don't speak German, but I was still quite enjoying it because it is essentially following the beats of the first episode for all the versions, with some small variations. I assume as things go on, they'll start finding their own way. Anyway, that's my weirdest thing, so why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this came from Idiots in the Wild 192, and it was, have you ever done a silly thing medically? You were like, oh, I knew it was dumb to do that. Why did I do that? And I shared the particular recent story where I had gone off my medication because I'd ran out. And I thought, well, I have an appointment very soon, and it ended up being a little bit longer than I thought. So, let's see. Today's answer comes from Emerald Angel. I take allergy medicine daily due to having asthma. When I was in middle school, I accidentally took the nighttime allergy medicine, a 12-hour medicine. Needless to say, I was very dopey the whole school day. These days, I'm on a better medication to manage my allergies, and now I refuse any drowsy allergy medicine. Thank you very much for sharing your answer, Emerald Angel. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.